How did you get into all this stuff?
As a little boy, I was fascinated with everything weird. It didn't matter if it was monster movies in the afternoon, sci-fi. You know, I absolutely loved Lost in Space and Star Trek as a little kid, and never lost my love for Star Trek. Lost in Space hasn't aged well, but I just always loved anything to do with a monster or space. I was fascinated with. And then as I got older, it became ghosts, and then Bigfoot. It was just like one thing stacked on the other. And Devil's Triangle, Loch Ness Monster, no matter anything like that was on TV, I'm watching it. And it grew from there. And about 15 years ago, I was in a paranormal group. The way the Slipstream stuff started was I was in a paranormal group. And when you're doing that, you tend to meet other groups and get to know them, become friends with them. And one day I got a call from a girl in another group, and she said, we're putting together, I hate to call it a super group, but it's somebody from each of like 7 groups, and we're going to go help people that nobody else can. And I said, well, that's great, because that's what it's all about, helping people. But it's probably your group that didn't help them, or it might be my group that didn't help them, or one of the other people in this new super group. So what are we going to do different than our other ones did? And so that was where we started, was, what do we need to learn? And we had a shaman come in and do some training with us. And I had a hard time. She was really pushing her own view on things. And when you work in energy, everybody's energy is different. And so when I'm teaching people about their energy, I want them to find it. I want them to see what it feels like. I want them to see it and know the color. Maybe it even has a smell. But when they find their energy, it's their energy, and everybody's is unique. No energy, color, or behavior is right or wrong. I have a friend that has this golden honey energy. It moves very slowly like honey. Another young lady I work with has just multiple colors streaming out, is what her energy looks like. Mine started out as a light blue, and it was cool. And this shaman kept saying, okay, it's going to be, I can't remember what color, yellow, and it's going to be warm. And mine wasn't. And it frustrated me, because she just kept going on and on about what it should be, instead of letting us experience it. And I talked to some of the other people, and they felt the same way. Their energy came through different. So I didn't interrupt the group, didn't interrupt that training, because she did have some good techniques that I used on my own and was able to develop. So from what she taught me, I learned how to find my energy. Just started working my hands together like this. And in your palms, you have a chakra. And that's what you're connecting with. And you're moving the energy around in that chakra. And so I found my energy, and it was blue, and it was cool. And as I'm messing with it, I decided, well, what would happen if I covered myself in it? So I put it on my whole body. And I set the intent with this energy that it was my protection. It would keep things on these paranormal investigations from coming with me. And then I started experimenting with, how big can I make this energy? Can I make it bigger than me? Can I make it to cover my house? Can I make it cover a city? And so I just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, until, there's been times where I've put it on the whole universe. It's an infinite amount of energy that you can put out there. But the Slipstream Shaman part of it came from, I've got a Lean Six Sigma background. And so I like to do things fast with less steps. And when I was learning NLP, one of my instructors said, if anytime you find you're working a process and it's helping people and it takes 7 steps, see if there's a way to do it in 6. See if there's a way to do it in 5. Always be working on making it faster. And so that's what I did with Slipstream Shaman. I looked for ways to make everything faster, from healing to protection of people's selves and their houses. And it's all about speed. The slipstream part, speed and ease. So the slipstream part is when you're driving down the freeway and a diesel drives by you, and that air hits you and you get pushed off to the side, and it gets by you and it sucks you back over. That's part of its slipstream. If you get behind that diesel, just like they do in NASCAR and they're drafting off each other, you get behind that diesel, you can stay with it. You're going faster than you were, your RPMs are going down. So instead of being at a 2 on your RPM, you're dropping down to 1.8 or 1.7 and going faster because you're in that slipstream. And that's where that name came from. I wanted things fast and easy and to just really work fast and easy for people. And the slipstream you create, when you heal something on you, you're actually healing backwards in time to generations behind you, and you're healing forward in time for the coming generations. It's really a powerful, when you understand what your energy is doing, it's really a powerful thing.
So how much of the energy stuff that you're visualizing is just intent versus the actual energy itself? Or is the energy sort of a metaphor for the intent, and the intent is the causal force that's making this happen?
That is a very, very good question. And I've never been asked that before. So the intent, I would say that the energy is what you have and what you can use, but the intent becomes like jet fuel, and it adds to your energy and really gives it that power and direction and how to proceed. And I love that question. It's something that I need to look at, because we know that another shaman I talked to one day, I asked him, so when you're working with somebody, and he's a guy that takes 4 days to help somebody, right? It's a gigantic process. I said, when does the healing begin? And he said, the healing begins as soon as I set my intent and they set their intent. That's when the healing begins. And so intent's one of the most powerful things that we have out there. And so yeah, I would look at it as we take our energy and we add jet fuel or rocket fuel to it, which is the intent. A fantastic question.
Mm-hmm. Well, I asked that because I had a theory about the manifestation stuff, and a lot of people talk about, thoughts being things and all of that. And that's never really been the case for me. I found that a lot of times it's more so what my intent is that comes true, and even intents that I might not be consciously aware of. In the subconscious or something like that. And, if you think about like the soul or the mind, body, spirit complex, whatever we are non-physically, the primary mechanism of action of that thing would be wielding intent. And then mind is sort of local and non-local in its biological as well. Because we all have, crazy thoughts, and it's like, oh, thank God they're not all coming true, right? So it can't be the thoughts, right? It has to be something else. Maybe the thoughts are a tool to help you clarify intent. I don't know. I was just curious.
I think you're really onto it there. And you mentioned something about that that you have intent and don't even realize it. I can't remember exactly how you just phrased it, but I thought that was very intuitive too. Something I can tell you is I searched for my purpose for years and years and years. What's my purpose? And I figured once I knew my purpose, everything would clear up and it'd be great, right? That there'd be just a direct line to success, whether I'm going to be a business executive or an entrepreneur or whatever. Just this clear road. Angels would sing, walk down this road. Purpose made me get there. What I found was that what my purpose is just 2 words: to help. And I was finally able to find my purpose while meditating in my quantum room, which we'll talk about soon, I'm sure. While meditating there, I found my purpose finally. When I got clarity on what my purpose was, looking back, my whole life has been about to help. I went into the Marines to help. I did this to help. I became a dad to help. Everything. I went into the paranormal to help. It was all about to help. I didn't realize that I was acting out my purpose. It was something in the background of my head guiding me there, pushing me there. I didn't realize that was my purpose. But once I got clarity on what it was, I could look back at all those situations in my life and realize I was working towards my purpose.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of knowingly or unknowingly on that journey of finding our purpose. And I think, back to the point of unconscious intentions, if you have like a higher self or an oversoul or something like that, or let's just say the subconscious is the totality of your being, and then this incarnation is sort of a siphoned off portion of that has its own intentions. The higher causality might drive you to help, like you said, and then but the mind body that's disconnected from all of that might end up it has maybe a distorted view of what to help means, because maybe to help is like joining a gang or something, or something crazy.
Sure.
And it's not on aligned with what the higher self wants or something like that.
Yeah, with what it wanted.
Yeah.
I think you're onto something there. The higher self, the whole understanding of what we are is really a big question. How are we just one incarnation of a higher spirit that has like 1,000 of us out there reincarnating? Are we all reincarnating at the same time? Is there actual time, or is it all happening at the same time? And a lot of big questions out there to answer. And I don't know if we'll ever answer them on this plane. It might be something we know and learn when we pass, or when we develop to a much higher level. But yeah, that's one of the great questions of life is what's that higher power? Is it part of us? Are we it? Is it, am I just going to end up being a grain of sand on a giant beach? Am I, where do I fit in this thing? Huge questions. Really, really good thoughts there.
Yeah, these are all just theories. I'm not making any claims. So the quantum room, what is that exactly? So, before we do that, I've been doing, I guess, self-hypnosis since I was a kid.
Okay.
And the place that, for whatever reason, I imagined when I started doing that was this grassy knoll on a hill in sort of a magical astral environment with a tree and all of this, mountains in the background. Is that my quantum room?
I would say yes. It's that place you go to heal. It's a place where you have access to all your energy, and where you're really out of body. You're in a completely different place. When I make notes of what happened during a session in the quantum room, they make no sense for an English major. An English major is going to read my sentences and say, okay, Todd, in one sentence, you're talking present, future, and past tense with these words. You can't do that. You have to pick one. I said, but those are the right words for the experience I had. And they said, it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to understand what you're saying if you leave it this way. So I had to pick how I was going to write these things, whether in present, past, or future tense, because time in the quantum room, and you've probably noticed this, doesn't work the same. You can be in that place for 15 minutes physical body time, but it feels like hours inside. And you can also be in there hours physical time, and it feels like only 5 minutes went by for you. So there's just this weird, our brains aren't able to comprehend time in the same way our spirit and our energy does. And that's one of the fun and crazy parts about this is watching people try to read my notes after I do a session. Because when I send people session notes, I don't edit, for present and past. I just the words are the words. And so it's fun when they ask me, what exactly does this mean? I have to talk them through it. So, but the quantum room is a place where you're a king, you're God. You can do whatever you want. You can do your healing. You can, I call in animals that have passed, animals that I've had that have passed away. I've got an uncle and an aunt that come in and help. There's fictional characters that come to life in the quantum room that you're manifesting. So it's a place where you go, you're in control, and you can really work on yourself. Once you get to that quantum room, you're really able to do some great meditation. And it doesn't take a long time to get there. And that's what the book teaches. Let me kind of back up a little bit. So I do healings for people. I don't charge for that. I want to help more people. I want to do this full time. So I'm looking at training, and that's what the book's about. And then I'm also developing a video series to do that, an online training series that should be out, I'm hoping, by the end of August. And you can find both these things if you go to slipstreamshaman.com. There's a link for the book. There will be a link for the other stuff as it comes up. And so I would encourage you to get on my email or go to Instagram at Slipstream Shaman. That way, when the new program comes out, if it's something you're interested in, you'll know about it immediately. But it's everything that's in the book, Slipstream Shaman. And then like just like the intent is rocket fuel, we went even farther. So you can actually see me working the processes, see what it looks like. And I just want to show this cover of the book. I think it's just amazing. You can see the Vasquez rocks up here and the energy. And the funny part of this is I got with a friend of mine and she does this kind of work. And I said, here's kind of what I want it to look like. And the energy that she put between my hands is what my energy had evolved to. It's so funny that she put virtually what my energy looks like now on that book cover. It's crazy how some things work out. So Quantum Room, it's a place you can do anything. It's where I invite, if I'm doing a healing for somebody, I invite them in. And healing might be the wrong word. It's probably more like an energy alignment. It's hard to get the right word for it, but we've had great success in helping people get better. So I invite them in. We have a group of animals that come and help me. I call it the warrior group. And the reason I have a warrior group is because when we were going to go help people that nobody else could help, we're going into places that have something very dark, very bad. And so my thought was I need to have a warrior group with me to help me if there's some kind of metaphysical fight. And so I just invited things. Who wants to be on my warrior team? Well, the first thing through the mist, at that point, my quantum room was just mist. It was just gray mist. And the first thing that came through the mist was a beagle that I had that passed away named Desi. She had the best nose I've ever been around. She was absolutely ferocious. She was dedicated and loyal. She was a wonderful dog. And she was the first one through. And then some of my other dogs, you can see over here, there's a picture of a Springer. I've always had Springer Spaniels. I love them. There's a crazy one sitting over here with me. Right now, he's being good for the moment. But I love Springers. And then all the Springers that I had in the past that had passed away came to help. Other things showed up. The warrior group, when I'm healing somebody, will come in and start looking around, start sniffing around. Desi starts sniffing them. And people that know beagles know that they have an incredible sense of smell. They can find anything. And so she starts sniffing, and then she'll paw at the people and pull something out of them. And that's just some kind of a metaphor, a manifestation of something that's going wrong with them. When I say she pulls a washcloth out of your stomach, it doesn't mean there's an actual washcloth coming out of here. Like when you go to the Philippines and they pretend to do stuff and they have chicken hearts and stuff that they're showing you. It's not like that. It's metaphysical. She pulls something out of you that's causing an energy draw. We know that things start with positive intention for the most part. So we take that item that was causing them pain, that was hurting them, that was making things harder. We take that item out of them. We give it healing energy and then love energy so it can return to whatever its proper energy is. So we might pull out something that looks like a washcloth, a dirty washcloth. Give it healing energy, give it love energy, and it will turn into a bird and fly away. Or one time, Desi pulled what looked like a rag from a woman's chest around her heart, and we gave that healing energy and love energy, and it turned into this beautiful blonde boy. And it just looked at her and smiled and then walked away. And I never did get the answer of what that meant to her. I don't know if that was a son of hers, if it was just what it was, but it was such an intense moment. And she went from having very bad heart trouble to where they were going to increase her heart medication the next month they said, you know what, things are looking okay. Let's leave it where we are. Keep the medicine where it is. A couple months later, they started backing the medicine off. And a little over a year, about 18 months, she was completely off the medicine, started doing like Thai boxing for exercise, and her heart was right. But what happened was we pulled whatever was causing that malfunction out, healed it, let it go off to do its own thing, and then put healing and love energy in her so she could start to recover. And I think I probably went down a weird rabbit hole. I'm not even sure where we started with that.
Who knows? We're on it now. So let's keep going. So years ago, I was reading a book. I think it was based in Hermeticism, and they were talking about how the physical universe, before something comes in. Well, I think the guy was like looking at a construction of a building, and metaphysically, the building was further along than the physical construction, if that makes sense. Okay. So what I'm getting at is people have illnesses, as you mentioned, of various kinds. Are these all or mostly caused by some kind of non-physical, metaphysical phenomenon that's taking place?
I think a lot of times it is. I think so. So what I find as I'm doing this work is there's three things that we run into. The first one is like that Tao I told you about. This is something that started off with a positive intent and then later hurt the person. So if you can picture, maybe you're 4 years old and you see a wrestler on TV tie the rope things on his arm, to make the muscles look bigger. And you think, I'm going to do that. And you do that. And you leave it on. It's really cool that day, but you leave it on. What happens when you're 5 years older? What happens 5 years after that? It's gone from looking cool and making your muscles look big to killing your arm. And I think that's the thing that's happening with these things. I call them companions. They started out as something that was there to help us. But as we aged and matured and developed, it stopped being something that helped us and actually held us back. And so we removed those things. And that's at least 90% of what I run into is things that started with a positive intent and then through time caused trouble. The next thing that I run into is a parasite. And this probably did not start with a positive intent. It probably started as a bad thought. So one of the things I want to encourage people is when you're driving, try not to get too much road rage going on, because there's some serious bad thoughts coming out of our head when we have the road rage. So please work on the road rage. I have a polymedella, which is a mini healing that I sent out for people to help them with road rage. It's really to help me, but because I hated driving, because everybody made me crazy. I just knew everybody was out to, doing all these things just to make me mad on purpose. They don't even know I'm there. But I've calmed down a lot after doing that. But I think parasites start out as something bad, a bad thought, a bad deed, something to give it life. And these things many times will look like an insect or just like something with the sucker, but not always. But when we remove these things, we still give them healing energy and love. Sometimes they change into something good. Sometimes they just dissolve. And then the final thing that I run into is a otherworldly thing. And you can call it an alien, you can call it a demon, and they look like what people call aliens or demons. They tend to look that monstrous look, and those are rare, but they're very destructive to people. They really drain them of what they're doing. If we have time, I'd love to tell you a story about one of those.
Oh yeah, let's get into it. I think I know which one you're talking about.
Okay. Ron, he's a friend of mine. That's the only real name I used in the book was Ron. And he's a guy that's been abducted by aliens many times. He's had near-death experiences. He's seen Bigfoot. He lives the paranormal lifestyle. He goes out and he collects EVPs and pictures for ghosts. But he was dying. And this was, it's about 6 years ago now. He was dying. His heart was getting worse by the day he was dying. And I asked him, hey, is it okay if I do this work with you? He says, please, I'll take anything. So I did some work on him, found that there was, you find the different things on people. I found this sucker tube stuck to his back that looked like it was sucking energy from his heart. So we removed that, burned it, and it took off. I wasn't able to follow it. And we healed him, and his heart stopped getting bad. it stayed where it was. And then a couple of weeks later, I went back in, found that tube back. A couple of weeks after that, the tube was back. I removed it several times. And then Ron was really getting bad again. And so as I was in there, I found the tube, and this time I wanted to follow it. And as soon as I made that intent that I was going to follow it, something opened up in my quantum room, and here's this triangle head shaped alien staring at us. And it sent this energy at me with its, I guess, mind, and it knocked me out unconscious. I wake up, I don't know how much later, and I didn't have the energy to go back in and work with Ron. The next day I did it again, same result. But this time I was ready to fight. It's same result. Next day, same result. And I'm talking to a friend, and she says, how about instead of going in as your normal Marine self, you take that love team with you and see what happens. That's a good idea, because this isn't working. And so I just charged up with love. I had the love team with me. I got tons and tons and tons of love, got him to open that thing and just blasted him with love. And he wasn't able to hit me and knock me out with his thoughts. And the love was just actually pushing him back and knocking him down and really, really having an effect on him until he just disappeared. And then Ron did really good for about 6 months. His heart quit going down. It improved a little bit. He did really good. And then he started getting bad again. So I went back in, there it was. And I found it another time. And instead of engaging with it, I backed off and asked that my highest guides come talk to me and help me through this. I asked for their guidance on what to do. And they told me to sit down. While I was sitting down, everything on me just started getting big. My hands got huge. You know, when you watch David Banner turn into the Hulk, it was kind of like that. Everything's just getting massive. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Everything got massive, and they're telling me smash, drive, slam up, smash down, crumple, something to that effect. And so as soon as they turned me loose to do that, I jumped through the mist, and there was that triangle head alien. I was outside his ship. I went through the ship, like tore a hole in it, grabbed him, drove him backwards, drive, smashed him into the ceiling, smashed him on the floor, and just wadded him into a ball, and then sent that whole thing into the sun to incinerate. And I watched the ship and him, everything incinerate. And I almost didn't put this in the book, because what we're trying to do is help, is to raise consciousness, to become a better planet, to do good things. And talking about violence like that really was against what this book was. But I also knew that I had to tell the truth. I had to tell my truth. And that was a big part of what was going on. So I told Ron wanted that story told, so I told it. And he did not, his heart never came back. But here we are probably 6 years later. His heart is still running at 13%, and he's still alive. And he's, they've tried to put him on hospice a dozen times. He's just not going. And so his heart, while it's not getting rebuilt, it stopped going bad, and he's still with us. And now he's got enough strength that he can go out and he loves to take pictures and go on ghost hunts, and he's doing that again. So that was one of my proudest things. But because of the violence, I hesitated on sharing that. But yeah, that's the worst kind you can run into. And I found something even bigger a few months ago working with somebody. So that's the new thing I've got to figure out. I found there was one of those tubes sucking somebody, removed it, followed it back, and I found this immense creature, looked something like it's kind of shaped like a peach, but almost pure energy, and it had billions of these sucker arms going out of it, going everywhere. I'm guessing all over the universe, all over us, and a lot of people have had trouble with it. I've run into those suckers a few times. I don't know how to fix it at this point. I don't know how to make it stop. I can cut it off and burn those things and put protection on the people so that it can't get them again. but I don't know how to stop it from getting to others. I don't know how to stop it from being a problem.
Mm. And so Ron also had some kind of regression therapy, hypnosis.
Thank you. I left out one of the coolest parts of the story. Thank you. Um, yes, he had regression therapy a few years before I did this work on him, and I'd never heard. He didn't tell me about this, but when I told him what I found, he kind of got wild-eyed and said, "So I'm having this regression analysis done with a hypnotherapist," and I freaked out. It's called an abreaction. You're in the hypnosis, and things just go wrong, and he had that happen, and he was screaming that the triangle-headed alien was trying to kill him, coming after him and trying to kill him. And so when I told him what had happened, it really changed a lot of his perception and perspective, and he was so happy to get that thing gone. And I can't believe I left that part of the story out. Thank you so much.
No, I found that very interesting. So what do these things want with people? You mentioned the tubes. What are they getting out of the tube?
I think they're getting energy, and I don't know if it's like life essence energy or just our spirit energy, or if it's physical energy. It certainly has physical manifestations. It hurts their hearts. It hurts their lungs. So they're getting energy of some kind. It's like using us as a battery. You've seen that in science fiction, and I kind of feel like that's what's going on. Is they're using us for an energy source and just trying to drain us. Maybe not enough, like a parasite would. Hopefully, not enough to kill us, so they can keep getting the energy. But I think that's what they're after. I don't even know if they're necessarily bad. A lot of them, like that giant thing that I found, I don't know if it's bad. But it's the consequences of what it does is bad. But I'm not sure that this thing's trying to hurt people or kill people. I think it's just like a cow killing the grass when it eats it and chews it up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking like a lion or something. It eats something. Is it really bad, or is it just doing what it's designed to do?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. So what else have you encountered? Like ghosts or deceased family members or angels or aliens?
So not so much angels. And one of the notes that you sent me is, what do we expect when we die? And I think what's going to happen when we die, of course, I have had 2 near-death experiences, but they didn't last long. But I believe what's going to happen when we die is you're going to go to a place like your quantum room. You're going to be in a place where what you believe takes place. So if you're a Christian and you're probably going to see Jesus when you die. If you're a Muslim, you're going to see the different deities with them. If you're Buddhist, you're going to see this. You're going to be into a place that you feel comfortable in. And if you don't have any kind of religion, it's just going to be whatever your likes are. And even if you do have religion, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a religious place. So that's that next level up. And I think we control it. I think it's what heaven is the place you make. And so that's an exciting thought for me is, what's the next step?
Yeah, I've studied a lot of near-death experiences, and something that I've seen a lot of is where, people will be a particular religion or spiritual system, and the first thing they encounter is something that they expect. So if they're Muslim, they see Muhammad. If they're Christian, they see Jesus. And it's sort of like this thought responsive reality environment. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like as you're passing through to the next phase, your human beliefs are sort of dying away, and then you're maybe being reintegrated into what you really are, the totality. And then there's kind of that residual belief, and that might create this little world that you expect. So some people go to a good place, some people go to a bad place, but then ultimately a lot of people, when they wake up and realize that, they can sort of change it. So like you said, you control it to an extent.
Yeah, it's a place you make. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And you asked about the different things I see when I'm doing this. Something that I see quite often, and I also see these when I'm not doing this work is what I call the watching man. And what that is this being, it's about 6 feet tall, fairly heavily built, all dark. I've had people tell me they're black, they're gray, they're dark gray, they're blue, they're dark blue, but they're just dark and they're just watching you. They have a face, but you can't see it. You can see that there's some kind of a helmet or a hat on them, and then typically what looks like a long cape. It's amazing how similar everybody's description is of these things, until you get people talking on TV, and then they all have glowing red eyes. But I've only talked to 3 people that saw that, and out of hundreds of interviews, only 3, and each one of them was weirdly enough, was a retired police officer. And so I don't know what the connection is there, if there is a connection, but I do see these watching men many times when I'm meditating, when I'm in the quantum room, when I'm working on people, and all they have ever done is watch. They're just very curious about what we do in our physical lives, very curious about what we do in the metaphysical, and I've never had one interact with me badly. I've never had one do anything other than watch. And that's mostly what people describe, is that they're watching them. But because they don't understand it, they're afraid. And I don't think there's something bad with them, but there's certainly something that looks scary and terrifying. But in reality, I think they're just watching.
Yeah. So in the Book of Enoch, it's a book that was not put into the Bible. He talks about the watchers. That could be what that is. I don't know. Very
possible. Yeah, very possible.
Yeah.
And did Enoch explain what they were watching for, or they're just observers, or?
I think it's I'm not making an official claim, but I think if I'm remembering correctly, it's something to do with observing or maybe making sure that the substrate of reality operates properly or something. I don't know. Who knows?
I like that. Yeah, watching how things are interacting with us. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that before. This has been a fun interview, Jay. I enjoy the things you're throwing out here. I don't often get these kind of thoughts and things to go investigate. So thank you.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to have you on, because when I first heard you, I was like, man, this guy's talking about some cool stuff. I want to ask him my questions. Yeah. So I'm glad to hear that. And I don't think that the Hat Man is bad. You've mentioned in some previous interviews that some people had a bad experience, but I really don't think that it's bad. It's probably just watching, observing. I think you mentioned it could be like time travelers from the future, or people remote viewing or something like that. And this could be like a government program or something of remote viewers just traveling around. I mean, there are plenty of. I just had a guy on who was talking about that. So you never know what these things are.
Yeah, very possible. Could be your future self watching you. It's really hard to say.
Yeah. So what do you know about sleep paralysis? I think so. Kind of like the Hat Man. I think a lot of people are afraid of it. It's partially a biological process, so you don't move around when you're dreaming. But this is where a lot of people, I think, have maybe good or bad visions, and maybe report being abducted or something like that, when maybe that's not actually what's happening. What do you think?
That's very possible. You're in that you're leaving the dream state, and so your body still has all those chemicals to keep you from acting out what you're seeing in the dream, and you can't move. And it just not being able to move is terrifying. And then you have those other thoughts. So sleep paralysis could be tied into a number of different things. The watching men, the Hat Man, it seems to be tied into the there's succubus, those kind of things it's tied into. So there's a little of physical and metaphysical going on at the same time. These things might be taking advantage of those chemicals. I don't know if they're controlling the chemicals that are keeping us paralyzed, but they're certainly taking advantage of that that state that we're in, and working on things. And so, the succubus, those kind of things are probably trying to scare you to feed off that energy, the terror energy, where the watching men are just there to see what's happening. Why are you coming out of sleep with stone paralysis? What are the interactions? What is the energy network around you still working? So yeah, I really like that thought. I'm going to have to investigate that more. I've tried to talk to them. I get no response when I see them, and I see them quite often.
Okay.
In meditation and also in real life.
Interesting. So let me paint a picture here real quick and see what you think about it. So all through my childhood and growing up into my early 20s, I had a lot of sleep paralysis. And initially I thought it was bad, because you can't move, it's dark, it's scary. Maybe you hear, auditory hallucinations. Maybe there are lights and things like that. And a lot of times I would be sort of floating over my body. And then it would feel like something was sucking me out through the bottom. And then I would fly out, and then I'd fly back into the body. And it was this very scary scenario. And then later on, I decided, okay, instead of being afraid, I'm going to just sit with it and see what happens. And I found that state of sleep paralysis is actually a very ample environment or platform for astral projection.
Yes.
And if you don't freak out, you can actually roll out or sit up and fly around. And I started being able to do that a little bit, not every time. And then something happened maybe a year ago, maybe not even a year ago. And this is really weird. So I would have the same scenario happen, except I would be in my childhood body having the experience. And when I would black out as a child, probably because of fear, my current present consciousness would fly around. So it's like I'm going back in time. That's crazy. What do you think of that?
I think just like I was saying before, time is different when you're out of body, when you're in that state. So it makes complete sense that you could go back to that younger self. And I think it's great that you're doing it, helping that younger self understand it better, and then going on those adventures where you're actually controlling being out of body. So yeah, I think that's amazing. And time travel is certainly something we can do in that sense. It's certainly something we can do in a healing sense. We can travel, find the place it happened, change our perspectives. So yeah, time travel's truly, it's not like you see in the movie. It's truly a real thing. And I think we're able to do that just because when you get into that metaphysical place, that quantum room place, whatever you want to call it, time it's just completely different. I don't it's all at once makes sense. It doesn't make sense to my mind, but I kind of think that's what's happening. Instead of being linear, everything's happening at the same time. And so you can go to different places like that. And really interact. And I think that is fabulous. Comfort as an older version of yourself, looking back and seeing that young one not be as frightened. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you hit on the point that I was getting at, which is that maybe what I felt like was pulling me out was me from the future, trying to help me, face that fear.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of spiritual growth, if you want to call it that, is learning how to control your fear by recognizing who and what you really are.
Yeah.
And then also helping to develop that ability, which I think is becoming more important for me now in the present. But yeah, on the time thing in the astral projection stuff, there doesn't seem to be a time. It's like an eternal state of just no time. And it's almost like time doesn't even make sense in that state. So I'm starting to think that time, as we see it as humans, is more of a human construct, or something that when you have a brain and you're a human, or when you're in this veiled experience, somehow time becomes linear and it just makes sense. But outside of that, it's not really how it works. So what we think of as a time travel is really just maybe moving over here, moving over there, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, just stepping out of our construct of time, and it puts us as a time traveler. Yeah, I think you're hitting it. It rings true for me what you're saying for sure.
Okay. Yeah, and I love these conversations because I just think about this stuff all day, and most people, it's too much for them.
The nice part is there's a big awakening happening, right? People are more interested in this kind of work. They, when I talked about Bigfoot and ghosts and different things, near-death experiences in high school back in the 80s, they treated you like a vampire. That was before vampires were cool, right? And they put up a cross and try to, they'd run from you. And now I'm the guy that likes weird things. Tell us a story, So now they want to know. And friends saw Bigfoot. Do you want to talk to him? Those kind of things. It's much more part of the norm. The word paranormal is probably going to have to stop being used soon because it has become the normal. Where we're no longer on the fringe. We're a big part of the population, and some great things are happening with research and it's not happening in labs. It's happening with field work of people like us looking at things from a different angle and experimenting and seeing what we find. And really cool things are happening in the world right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, like you said, we should probably stop calling it paranormal because things are becoming commonplace at this point. So even like NDEs, near-death experiences, and out-of-body experiences, this is now being officially studied by, reputable organizations. And it even has been for decades, like the University of Virginia Divinity something school or whatever. They've looked at tens of thousands of these instances. And then if you look at IANS, which is the International Institute of Near-Death Studies or something, there are probably tens of thousands of personal experiences on there. And these are just the ones that are documented,
Right.
I would imagine that stuff like this happens every day to, hundreds of thousands of people potentially. Or at
I'm
least
curious how many actually tell about it. Not everybody's going to speak of it.
Right.
So there's a lot happening that we don't even know about. We just know about the ones that the people talk, and there's a ton of those. And I'll bet there's just as many, if not more, that we never hear about.
Yeah, and probably never will.
Yeah.
And not everybody wants to come on the internet and talk about it. Like you said, when you were younger, if you talked about this stuff, you could get ostracized. And even worse than that, I've talked to people who were, they'd had experiences back in the 70s and earlier. And if you brought up near-death experiences or something, they might put you in an institution.
Yeah. And parents, would freak out and punish kids for saying that, what they were seeing, saying they were lying. And, it was a different world. 50s, 60s, I think people learned not to talk about it. And then it started getting more and more commonplace. And now you're almost weird if you haven't had some kind of experience.
But that's good though, because and that's good because I think most people, maybe everybody, probably everyone, has some kind of psychic ability or mystical ability. They just don't know what it is, and maybe they're afraid of it, or they don't know how to tap into it. And a lot of this, I think, has been suppressed because of by conditioning. And if you tell someone, oh, that's bad, or you shouldn't do that, or whatever, then you're going to suppress that ability. But as it becomes normalized, not only do people become more willing to be open about it, but they probably also become more able to do it in the first place. Because you studied NLP. If you have belief systems that are blocking you from certain things, it's going to affect your ability to execute a certain action.
Yeah, so. For sure. Yeah, and I love what's happening right now. I'm so happy to be a part of it, and really want to help people accelerate their development and growth. And that's what I'm all about. And that's where that's what the book teaches. That's what the the other stuff we'll teach. And like I said, if you want to get a hold of me, go to my website. There's an email there. There's you can go to Instagram, Slipstream Shaman, get on there, and I'll be putting stuff on as it comes up. But I used to tell people on these shows that, hey, I'll do a free healing for you if you want to do that. Unfortunately, in January, I was hit with thousands of requests for healings that I have not worked my way through yet. So if you want to ask, please do, but understand I am so far behind. I'm still working on January stuff. So I can only do so many a day. It does take some energy from you. And so, yeah, it's going to be a while before I get to a lot of them. Now, sometimes I'll get a new one and the energy in it tells me you've got to help them now. And they jump the line. But for the most part, if you do ask for healing, just understand that it's a ways out. I will do it, but it might be a year or two at this point.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, that's a quality problem, right? You know, people know more about you, but now you have less scalability, so you can't actually reach them. Yeah. But it's, you know, I'm glad that so obviously you have the book and you've had that out, but I'm glad that you're working on the course now, and then you have your own distribution platform as well, so you can get this stuff out to people. Because I would imagine that all the things that you're doing, people could do to themselves, right? If Ron had your abilities, yes, he could probably heal himself.
Absolutely. And that's why I want to teach this. I would like to get thousands and thousands and thousands of Slipstream shamans out there working together to really change the course of this planet. I told you I grew up watching science fiction and love Star Trek. I'm wanting us to do that. I want this world to get to a place where we work together, not just pulled together to fight somebody, but actually working together all the time. What could we achieve if everybody around the world was working towards common goals and working together instead of, you know, fighting and killing each other because they're different? And that's what I'm after, is to help us just become that community that can really help each other and help ourselves and grow and develop and do amazing, spectacular things.
Yeah. If we weren't all working towards different agendas, I mean, we'd probably be living in Star Trek at this point.
Yeah, without question. You know, I would say if we could put our pettiness aside, put our greed aside, and just work on things, we could probably create things like Star Trek in a decade with the mass power of the planet, all working towards that goal. I would be shocked if it would take us more than a decade working together. Problem is we're all fighting with each other, and one country wants to develop it so they can hurt another country. And, you know, we're doing it the wrong way. I think we're making advancements, but we could be doing it so much faster as a team than as enemies and as somebody that's just trying to grab a bunch of money, you know, and I don't want to sound like money's bad, money's great, but it's how many helicopters do you need? You know, there comes a point where, you know, is 5 billion enough? Do you really need another 20? Yeah. Most of the world can't even comprehend what a million is, much less billions. Do you really need more? Let's figure out a way to make good things.
Yeah, the money thing is interesting because, you know, on one level, you don't want to take away people's pursuit of, you don't want to take away the incentive for people to create their own projects and be entrepreneurial. But at the same time, you also don't want to aggregate resources in a select few, you know, 1% of 1%, and then everyone else suffers for it. So, you know, and the solution to that is it's not a political thing. It's not an economic system. It's an evolution of human consciousness to the point where people, they give not because they have to or because they're taxed, but because they want to, you know.
I agree. And you've really done a great job with taking big concepts and boiling it down to a simple sentence everybody understands and gets. I mean, that's what you just said is absolutely dead on. And it's about the fourth one you've done that with, today during this interview. So I really appreciate how you look at things and the way you think and the way you can just break it down and make it easy for everybody to understand. That's an uncommon trait, and it's impressive.
Well, thank you for that. I need the encouragement just like anyone else. So right back at you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Sasquatch. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So Sasquatch.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna talk over you.
Go ahead. I've never seen one. I've been interested in it, like probably a lot of people. I know that you've mentioned a lot of things about Sasquatch. Particularly what I'm interested in is its interdimensional characteristics.
Okay. So a little bit of background. When I was, again, working with a shaman, we were getting our animal guides. And I ended up getting two. One was a bull elk. The second one was Bigfoot. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a female Bigfoot. As I've gotten to know these two over the years, it was a female Bigfoot. And while we were getting these animal guides, you would take the characteristics of them. We were walking on ice around a fire, and it was very slippery, very treacherous. And as I picked up these animal guides, my walk became so much safer. With when the Sasquatch was with me, I was taking these big strides, just like Sasquatch, on this slippery ice. That if you weren't being, manifesting this other creature, I should have been falling all over myself. And I'm just cruising around on this ice with no problem. I also looked down a mountain range and realized that I could go down that entire range in seconds. And I believe what it felt like to me was that what I would do is walk to a point, step outside of our reality, and enter a point farther down, and then step out of our reality and enter a point farther down. And I wonder if that's what's happening with Bigfoot. I do think there's some kind of a trans-dimensional animal. You see so many times tracks going through the woods to a clearing, and then there's nothing else. There's no tree to climb. There's no rocks to get on. You're in an open clearing. Tracks are done. Now, I don't think, I suppose there's people doing hoaxes that walked out there and then retraced their steps. And maybe they're coordinated enough to do it. I'm not, but maybe something like that's going on. But I really believe that they just phase out of this reality and go to a different place. That they're just here. You might even call it they're here to camp or to commune with nature. And with Bigfoot, just like with the Hat Man, the Watching Man, I have never talked to anybody that had a bad experience with them. But what do you see on TV? They're throwing rocks. They're throwing trees at people. They're beating up houses. And this is my world. I talk to hundreds of people. I've never had one person tell me about a bad experience. The closest thing to a bad experience was I was talking to an author from Idaho, and her name escapes me right now. But she has a story about a guy he had to go pick up a truckload of hay that was out in the field. The trailer on the semi was already loaded with hay. He had to drive his truck out into this field and get the semi and then transport it. He got the truck all hooked up, and he started moving slowly and looks to the side, and there's a Sasquatch there. And he speeds up a little bit, and the Sasquatch keeps up with him. And then it eventually jumps onto the rig, onto the semi, and is face to face with the guy, and says something to the effect of, "Are you having fun, Johnny?" Whatever the guy's name was, said his name and asked him if he was having fun, and then jumped off and ran off. Well, it freaked the guy out completely. He told maybe his wife and his parents, and then this author found out about it and went and talked to them, and they told her the story. He will not talk to anybody about it. He's a little freaked out about it still. He doesn't want to share it. But yeah, this thing jumped right on the truck and looked at him. And that is as close to a bad experience as I've ever heard somebody have with them. But when it's on TV, it's like they're kidnapping us and killing us. A lot of the paranormal stuff has turned into how can we make this bigger and scarier than it really is. My experience has just not been that at all, and that's 40 years, 50 years of doing this.
Yeah.
Never had a bad experience like that.
Well,
Or
fear sells.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, you look at all these ET shows and Sasquatch shows, they're all making it seem like they're, these wild animals attacking people and abducting people and doing experiments and stuff. And I'm sure some things happen like that, but from what I've seen, doesn't seem to be the norm. But the guy on the rig with the hay, did the Sasquatch speak telepathically, or was it with its mouth?
It's been a bit since I talked to that author. I want to say that he spoke, but most people, the experience they've had with Sasquatch is telepathy. That they've had it say, you need to stay away, you're close enough, and that was all through thought. So yeah, I haven't personally talked to any that have spoken out loud. One of the things on my bucket list is to interview a Sasquatch. I would love to be the guy that gets to interview a Sasquatch. So I'm looking forward to that. I've set the intent, and now it just has to happen.
Yeah, well, hey, it might, the way things are going.
I'm hoping.
Yeah. And the interdimensional aspect of it would make sense why people can't find it. You see all these shows out there where the Sasquatch is, they make it out to be this dumb creature that's like, smacking branches against a tree or something. And it's like, well, either the thing isn't dumb and it's outsmarting everyone, or it's doing something else, like what you mentioned, where it's teleporting or phasing in and out.
Yes. I have talked to two people that claim to have shot one or shot at one. One said that it when he shot at it, it just disappeared. The other one said it flashed and was gone. They never found any sign of blood or impact of it. And I hope that they didn't hurt them when they shot at them. But we don't know.
Yeah,
we just don't know.
So what do you think that they want, if anything?
That's a great question. I have talked to a number of people that have talked about being abducted and being on ships, and they've seen Sasquatch on those ships. You also get a lot of reports where there's UFO activity and Bigfoot activity in the same area. So sometimes I wonder if they are here just for vacation or to relax. It feels like this is a habitat they like to be in. So it'd be like me driving to another state to camp. It feels to me like they're just here for a visit. And it may be nothing more than this is where they relax. And it may be that they're here testing us, seeing our level of development. It may be that they come here to do some other kind of tests. And I'm talking with nature, with whatever. Really one of those questions that we haven't had enough interaction with them to find out. There was another researcher in the Pacific Northwest that did some kind of he did an investigation. I want to say it was in Southern Oregon. And then he drove home to somewhere in Northern Washington. It was about a 5-hour drive. And it's fun when you're in a Bigfoot area to leave different trinkets laying around and see if they'll mess with it. And he left, I want to say it was a toy. It was like a top or something that he left in a tree. And when he got back to his house, it was in his backyard. So the interdimensional thing makes sense to me, where it could do that and put it in the backyard. I like to find a tree in the deep woods, away from as many trails as possible, that has a good straight branch coming straight out around the 7-foot mark. And I put coins up there. Typically I put dimes. I always put them heads up, and then just check on it periodically to see what's going on. And one of the trees that I did this with, it was every time I went there, the number had changed. I put 5 to start with. I went back, only could find 1. The others were gone. I looked all over the ground. Next time I go back, it's still the one in the tree, but now here's 3 on the ground. Obvious. I mean, just in plain sight on the ground there. They weren't before. I looked in those places. So I put them back up, come back again, and all 5 are there. I did this for about a year. The best one though was just before I had to move from that area. I went back there to check on it, and there was a quarter. So there was 2 dimes and a quarter. I don't know if he made change or she made change, but the next time I went back, the quarter was gone. Everything was gone except for 1 dime. And I have a picture at home with me holding the dime, and I have a little caption on it that says Bigfoot owes me 40 cents.
That's awesome. Yeah, maybe they're here for some kind of like survival, escape, and evasion school.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, could be something like that, or survivor school, or there's a lot of things it could be. And I wish they would interact with us more so we could get a better understanding.
Yeah. What about these subterranean environments? I think lots of people have talked about, I think it was Admiral Byrd who flew his plane to the South Pole or North Pole and went into some kind of hollow earth thing, and there were ETs in there. What do you think about all that?
You know, we keep seeing pictures of Antarctica, and they find things that could be that hole that he talked about. Recently, they found what they believe is a pyramid on Antarctica as well. So yeah, that's a really curious thing. I tend to I don't think it's a hollow earth. I think there might be some kind of portal there that's not necessarily taking us to the inside of our earth, but it is taking us someplace that has those different types of aliens, different types of things. I'm not a geologist, but it just, the whole thing feels wrong that the earth would be hollow and that's working. And one of the reasons I say that is if it was hollow, I'm wondering how we keep the water up here, keep the oceans up here. I do a lot of work with resin on wood that has knots and holes and stuff in it. And you'll put resin. I do stuff that's this 5-6 inches thick, and you'll have cracks that run through the whole thing that you don't even know how they attach to each other. So you put resin in over here, and it drains over there. It's amazing how liquid can find a way. And so if I'm just wondering if we had a hollow earth, how it's not flooded. And that might be my own infantile thought process, but I have a hard time believing that if we didn't have some kind of solid core, that the oceans, lakes, everything would end up eventually draining into that thing. Because look at anybody's basement, water always finds a way. So that's just my own thought.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would imagine that there's probably some kind of subterranean environment. Doesn't mean that there's a hollow earth, but there could be maybe entire civilizations or something down there.
Yeah.
A lot of fringe researchers have come to that claim. And then also there's stuff in like the Emerald Tablets of Thoth where they talk about chambers in the earth and stuff. So, but I was just curious if you knew anything.
And many people talk about, the indigenous people of the United States talk about the different things that come up out of the ground, out of subterranean caverns and interact with them. So yeah, I think there's something to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe it's like that movie Stargate SG-1. You ever see that?
I did. Yeah.
Teleporters.
Yeah. And so I wonder if there's something like that going on there, or it's just some kind of wormhole, portal, whatever it is, where you can leave this reality to another one, and it may appear like a hollow earth in there, but I struggle with it actually being hollow. But again, I'm not a geologist, so.
Well, maybe the government will tell us one day, right?
You bet. Yeah, they'll jump right on it.
when they release all their UFO technology and stuff.
Yeah,
Have you seen?
What's that?
I was going to say, have you seen these press releases that they're doing lately?
I've read a couple of them. I've been so busy the last few weeks that I've missed a lot of that. But the two I read were from people that all these claims are made in the headline and the first paragraph of the article. But then as you read farther, they're guys that say, well, yeah, I never actually saw it. I just heard about it from people that I believe. And so I was hoping that we actually had whistleblowers that we could verify who had gone in there. And maybe I just haven't gotten to those yet. But the two articles I read, I was kind of disappointed in. It kind of went backwards. The farther you read, the less valid it felt to me. I want disclosure. I want it bad. I want to know what's going on. I want to tour Area 51 and see what's going on.
Yeah, I think we all do. And the way we're going to get it is through what we're doing right now. It's going to be community disclosure. So the government is afraid of the people. They're afraid of releasing stuff. What if we do this? I think some studies were done. Greg Braden was talking about this, about how they did these anthropological studies where when they introduced a earth-shattering or reality-shifting concept to a society, the society fell apart within 10 or 15 years or something like that. So I think that's kind of what they're scared of. They don't want the whole system to come crashing down if they come out and talk about how this stuff is real. But the way the disclosure is going to happen is through what we're doing.
I agree. And I want disclosure, and I was for years, for decades saying, we're ready, we'll be fine, we're ready. And then you couldn't buy toilet paper 2 years ago. We're not ready. As a society, I don't think we're ready. I want us to start getting some of this, but with the way we behaved during that pandemic, it leads me to believe that we still have some work to do. And this is the work we're talking about, getting the word out there, getting things more normal, getting conversations going, getting more and more people wanting the truth and reaching out for the truth. And I think you're dead on. This kind of conversation is what's getting us there, raising our awareness.
If you understand things like psychological warfare or information operations, you can sort of understand how the things that we've seen in recent years can control an entire population with fear and atomization and stuff like that. So yeah, I think to an extent, many of us are not ready for that. If we're still at the point where we're going to freak out over over toilet paper and believe everything that we're told by what we think are trusted sources, then maybe we're not ready. But things like this, conversations like this, for those who are willing to listen to them, that will be useful, and that will ripple out from one person to the next. And over time, maybe 10, 20, 30 years, we'll get to a point where people can accept this stuff and not lose their minds. Yes.
And that's what I'm hoping for. That when we find out the truth, that we're good with it and we can evolve. We can use what we can learn from them, whether it's technology or whatever, and really advance as a society. And that's the hope, for sure. The hope.
Yeah. So we've been going for like an hour and 20 minutes. I've ran out of questions.
No problem.
But I want to give you one last opportunity to promote your book and the course that you're coming out. It sounds really interesting. It's something I'd like to take at some point, just to get your take on everything.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We'll make sure you get a link. It's Slipstream Shaman. If you go to slipstreamshaman.com, there's links to Instagram, to my email. You can get a hold of me there. You can also, there's a link to get the book. It's sold through Amazon. You can get it really fast. Slipstream Shaman. I think I have the coolest cover out there. I just love what she did with the cover. Everything I hoped for. And it's going to teach you how to heal yourself and others. And so the book we'll certainly do that. The course goes more in depth. You actually see what I'm talking about instead of, hopefully I'm painting a good enough picture in the book that you can see it, but you'll actually watch me do these processes and go through it. And one of the things I can tell people about the course that's coming up is I hate fluff. So it's not going to be 30-minute videos that you get bored with. It's going to be like 5 to 10-minute videos, and then you start practicing. It's going to be fast videos. You get to the point, you get going. This is Slipstream. This is Lean Six Sigma. This is let's get this right today. So truly, somebody gets that course or gets the book within 2 hours, you're changing your life. And that's the exciting thing for me, is helping people change their life for the better. And people all around the world. I'm shocked when I see places that the book has sold: Japan, Germany, Sweden, Brazil, all around the world. Nobody from Easter Island's bought one yet, and that's my favorite place on the planet. So I'm hoping somebody from Easter Island will get it. When I visit that, I'll probably take 20 for a bookstore and just donate it, so that made it to Easter Island. But yeah, slipstreamshaman.com, and it'll get you everywhere you need. And I hope that by the end of August 2023, the program will be online and available for people.
All right, Todd, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. It's been fun. The time flew by, and you asked some really great questions. Thank you.